Hello, I'm Lisa LeRose, and I'm joined by Michael J. Russ. So today we're going to ask you to imagine what it's like to be more alive by paying attention to your own vibration and resonance. On our last episode, Michael and I shared our own personal insights on what we do to create our reality by aligning with our heart and our emotions so that we can step into a resonant field to realize the things that we want in our life. And as often happens in my conversations with Michael here on PRN FM on Connect to Love, I will bubble with thoughts, and he inspires me to continue the conversation well after it's ended during our time together. And I revisited, I thought to myself, I think I remember something from my childhood. There was a Professor Julius Sumner Miller, and he kind of was like a mad professor. But sure enough, he used to be on television when I was a little girl in Canada, and sure enough, he is on YouTube. The magic of YouTube, you can find anything. And he had a video on resonance and force vibrations, and he said that all the evidence that the natural world presents to us is gotten by one of our senses, namely the auditory, and it's governed by the reception of our eardrum that gives us the variations in pulses. And he did some very interesting experiments with tuning forks and string and all different sorts of things. I'd encourage you to look it up on YouTube. But one of the things that I found so fascinating is, he talked about one of his experiments was the pitch for A, and he was talking about how it's different on a piano versus on a violin, and it started to make me think about us being like musical instruments, that we have this intelligence in our body that's picked up through the auditory that is sort of a subliminal thing that we're tuning into people all the time, and that certain things that even though we aren't consciously aware of it is going on. And so we're going to sort of explore that aspect. And so Michael, thank you for being in resonance with me and for all of the beautiful insights. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as a musician, what you were tuning into today.
Well, since I haven't been able to play here in the last week because my big chunky calico has decided to spend most of her day in my office right in front of my drum set. And I don't have the heart to disturb her while she's sleeping all day. I haven't had a chance to play. However, music is something. I'm very musical. Can't drive a car down the road without, when songs come on, picking up the nuances of the backbeat and the melody and the harmonies that are going on. And since I sing as well, it's so much fun to choose and select the harmonies. There's certain things that resonate with me, and music is always something that, for me, has changed the way I feel almost immediately. So I'm bouncing. I have 2, 3, 4 radio stations that I listen to, and when something comes on that's being played that doesn't resonate with me, I just change quickly to something else. I mean, it's that quick. I don't just sit there and listen to something that doesn't resonate with me. And I think, when we said that, we tune into people, I just got to go there because it's interesting. We get most of our information, our input throughout the day from people. Could be our family, could be our significant other, could be our extended relatives, could be friends, coworkers. If we're going to an office, that pretty much is it. So the fact that we're picking up on the vibrational frequencies and resonances of the people that are around us, we have to be incredibly alert and know that we're impacted by their frequencies. We are impacted, and this is the part that I absolutely love. That we have the ability, through our own awareness and understanding, that we that our flow of happiness and joy, connectivity to the divine, all these things are impacted by other people throughout the day. And so I think last week we left off with choose happiness as your intention. Elevate happiness to the top of your list of priorities throughout the day. Happiness, if that's your goal, if that's your intention, then you can, through your own sovereignty, which means you are the ruler of your mind, your body, and your spirit. So you're in charge and control of what goes into your mind and what impacts your body. And through your own awareness of how you feel and understanding that you have this control, this ability to filter out other frequencies to in essence, render them persona non grata, so to speak, and not allow them to interrupt your frequency. You can put up a buffer, a barrier. It's mental, but you can do that. And that's your right to do so. And that's the greatest gift, one of the greatest gifts that we've been given as human beings, as souls in human form, is the ability to choose what enters our minds and what impacts our bodies and our spirits. So throughout the day, I am ever cognizant of the people I connect with. And I'm making sure throughout the day that if I connect with somebody who is let's say, a bit off, so to speak, with regard to their own attitude, maybe it's a little twisted, a little out there, I make sure that when I recognize it, that I maintain some distance. Their energy field, their electromagnetic field, is out about 3 feet from their body. So at least I know if I stay away from that, I'm pretty much negating mitigating, I should say, the lion's share of that energy. And it's cool to be able to develop this skill of being able to look at people, read their body language, read their facial expressions, and kind of determine what kind of frequency they may be vibrating at and resonating at. You see, it kind of makes it fun to go throughout the day to do that. But the whole idea behind this is to put yourself in charge of your own resonance. That's really the goal. And when you can do that, and you can enter into the process of transformation, if you find yourself, oops, I've been impacted by this person, then the other fun part is how to actually get your own resonance back. Get your frequency elevated again once it's been depressed because you've come into contact with information, impact by someone else, family member calls. Nowadays it's digital too, because text, you can receive a text. You can get a voicemail. Even though you chose not to engage with someone, they can still send you a text or send you a voicemail if they haven't been blocked on your phone. So you still have the possibility of being impacted in a negative way digitally, because you and I know there's no time and space when it comes to frequency, right? And so all these things can impact us in different ways, and we have to make it sort of fun to be able to be in control, to exercise our own sovereignty and be in control of how we feel in the resonance that we're putting out there.
And, I'm so glad that you said that there's no time, no space, no matter, because oftentimes with my friends that I'm connected to, we're on the same wavelength with each other. There's a unison, like we resonate with each other. So even though perhaps I haven't spoken to somebody for 8 months, or even, God forbid, it's over a year, I'll pick up the phone, I'll be thinking about them, they'll be tuning into me almost the exact same time, and there'll be things unfolding in their life that are very similar to what's going on in mine. And, we pick up, and it's hard to believe that any time has gone by. It's really sort of an illusion that there is no time between us. It's just, even talking to you, even speaking with you, it's hard to believe that 5 days or 7 days or whatever. It's just that connection that we have, and that when you're in that resonance with somebody, you tend to mirror, be a mirror for that other person. So oftentimes if there are some positive aspects or some negative aspects, you go, hey, you know what? What's going on with you? I can feel in your field there's something not quite right. And then, sometimes we're not even cognizant of it ourselves. And it will take somebody that's close to us, that is in resonance with us, to say, hey, you know what, there's just some little small things that, I'm here for you. I'm here to help you elevate your vibration once again.
True. Excellent. That is excellent. We can be proactive with it. Or not reactive, proactive, or in the way of either circumventing or engaging. And that's a choice that you make based on, where you're going, how you feel, what you're doing, and the like. And that's the beauty of being human. We can make choices just as long as we understand the consequences that are associated with those choices. And in my view, people are guided to me for just this kind of information. How can I deal with it? I'll give you a little example. We're in one of our favorite restaurants. We just go to this place on the bay when it's a beautiful sunny day and we can look out at the boats coming in or going by or whatever. We sit down and have a glass of wine. Well, the young lady who was helping us that day was a really beautiful soul, a wonderful human being. Works very hard, has a great attitude, and she came by, and when we were paying the bill, I always make sure that I include a card from my podcast. And I said, here, maybe you could use this right about now. And she looks at my card, and she goes, oh my gosh, absolutely. And she started telling me some things. And I said, basically about the last 5 episodes that are on my podcast will help give you some insight as to how you can start creating your reality and shifting and changing to draw the people into your life that really are going to resonate with you. I said, it's all within you first. We all want, the best relationship. We want the best job. We want the best of everything. We have to understand, however, that it begins inside of us. We have to treat ourselves like kings and queens. We have to treat ourselves like the spirits we are, like the wonderful souls that we are. We have to engage in a lot of self-love and respect and gratitude, empathy and compassion with us first, and love with us first. And when we do that, we put ourselves in a position where we are resonating so highly that we're going to attract a mirror of that into our lives. And I can't tell you how many times I've come across this recently, people saying, I want my life to change. I want to find someone who I can, spend some time with and have conversations with and that sort of thing. And I'm going, well, how do you feel? The question I ask them is, how do you feel about you? Because that really, and that's going to be the determining factor as to what they're going to attract. And I said, you're alone. I told this young lady, you're alone for a reason. It's to get your own act together. Get your own act together. Get your own resonance at a very high level. And once you do that, everything else will take care of itself. Just to work on you. If you're happy, you're joyful, and you're empathetic and compassionate to others, and loving, very loving of yourself. Giving yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up because you're single. That's the first thing people want to do, is they want to beat themselves up. Why am I single? What's wrong with me? And I'm going, you're asking the wrong questions. You're asking the wrong questions. How can I give myself more love? That's a good question. How can I be more empathetic to myself? How can I be more compassionate when I feel a certain way? With regard to the experiences I've had in the past, how can I be more forgiving of myself and let things go so that they're no longer entrapped by those past experiences? How can I let them go and practice forgiveness and gratitude every day for myself? Then you're going to be a really special person that's going to attract other people, other friends. And I told her, I said, got to be very careful. You people in your life are going to pick up on this brand new resonance, this high elevated resonance you have, and they're going to be asking you, what's changed? What are you doing? What's going on? You okay? And in some cases it will repel them because they themselves feel envious or jealous that they don't feel the way you do, so they'll want to put you down so that they can feel better. And when that happens, you just have to simply understand that you are who you're with. You are who you're with. You will attract somebody who's just like you, and you will repel people who are not. And the people you've been closest to for a long period of time, and this particular young lady was wanting to kind of let go of some people. And I said, just change your own resonance. They will go away automatically. They'll find some other place to be. And just be prepared, have a strong enough constitution, a sense of self, I should say, a strong enough sense of self to be able to withstand the attacks, because they do often come. People don't like it when you have changed yourself, because they don't like change themselves. And so there's also people who look outside of themselves to get what they don't have within themselves. And that is also a situation within the context of any kind of relational connection that can be toxic. So it all starts with us, and I think that's what we're talking about. We've got to get our own resonance.
And you're absolutely right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because so often when we begin to elevate ourselves, other people will start to feel bad, and then we begin to doubt ourselves, whether or not we're really on this path, or we blame ourselves, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I, be friends with them and do these other things that I want to do? And so we just need to realize that our frequency has changed, that we no longer oscillate together, and that vibration, as it dissolves, we may feel nothing for that person. They may be just in the periphery. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, that we've just changed, and it's okay to let those go. And I think it's important to have the discernment and the grace to know when it's okay to let those go. And I really applaud you for sharing that with that young lady, because when you're in a vulnerable state, it's very easy to lower your vibration to go back into the routine, and then I think you put yourself back a couple of years from where you needed to be. Really, you take a couple steps back, and that's really not the goal. I mean, if you do keep your frequency high, soon enough you'll attract the individuals with the same goals, wishes, desires, whatever it is, whether it be a partner or something in business. It's very, very important. And I think I have, many years ago, was one of the angels that came into my life that taught me about manipulation, and that when somebody makes you feel guilty or sorry for them, you can look at that as a manipulation. They're trying to get on top of your energy. And I started to really look at that in my life, because I'm Canadian, and Canadians apologize for everything. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what it is culturally, but you always I'm sorry, and I see it as a cultural phenomenon. They're very peaceful, generally, but we do apologize. And somebody one time said to me, "Stop saying you're sorry for everything," and I wasn't even conscious of it. And I thought, wow, I guess I am. I'm saying I'm sorry a lot, and then you have individuals that take advantage of the fact that I was so apologetic and so genial and whatnot. And then I had to look at it myself. Well, am I allowing myself to be a doormat or being manipulated or whatever it was? And I sort of had to put my foot down. I said, and I recognized it, and I would call people out, and I'd say, hey, you know what? That's a manipulation. And as I started to recognize it and correct myself, I became stronger. And I didn't even have to voice it. I just go, hey, you know what? That's a manipulation. And I'm not going to empower that. I'm not going to embody that. It's not who I am. I'm going to release it and let it go. And there's a lot of empowerment and different things in those lines that are gifted to us from individuals and things that we've picked up along the way. And, I really do. I think that as you begin to attract and send out a different field of information. And, and I love your analogy about, quickly turning the station. What came to mind was like Walking on Sunshine, that song, and you kind of you feel so elevated by it. You can't help but, dance in your car and sing and whatnot.
Okay,
and
now
that's
I have to tell
really
you something.
what it is. Go ahead.
Now I have to tell you something. You're familiar with the 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree situations? Like you're less than 6 degrees separation from people that you think.
Right.
This is really interesting. You're gonna love this, and our listeners are gonna love this as a not necessarily a coincidence, because I don't believe in those things or accidents. But it's interesting that you mentioned that song. It's always been one of my favorites. And I moved here in 2003. In about 2011, I was walking down the street because I was walking my dog at the time, Angel. And one of my friends said, "Hey, the next door neighbor, this guy just moved in. He's a musician. You ought to check him out. He's also a golfer. Maybe you guys can play golf together." So the next time I was walking my dog down there where he was standing in the driveway, I introduced myself. And believe it or not, turns out to be he's the bass player from Katrina and the Waves.
Oh my gosh, how fun!
Yeah, and he's retired because the band quit playing. I can't remember that was in the 90s. They quit. They were together for 13 years, but he's still one of my best friends down here. We've made wine together, we've traveled together, and we watch each other's pets, and he's a warm one, and we've recorded together, believe it or not, because he has a recording studio in his house. So I've been able we've created and made songs, recorded songs together. But isn't that interesting? You're only 1 degree away from knowing the bass player in that band.
Oh, that's amazing!
With your favorite
I love that song
and
too.
It is the happiest song, and I've heard 3 or 4 different versions of that song. Without all of I've also been told the entire story of how that song got to be what you actually hear on the radio, because that's not the song that they were. Yeah. You can understand, in terms of recording, the song was sent to a couple of producers, and one special producer in New York who actually came up with the horns, the percussion entrance to the song. I mean, all these things. A song is crafted. It's crafted to be the way that it is. It's not necessarily just something, you're just sitting around a garage and let's record this thing and then put it out there as a hit. The horns you hear on it, everything that you hear in the song has been delicately put together in the place that it is for a reason, because it makes it what it is. And it's really, really rather unique. So anyway, one agrees. And you never know. You're also 1 degree away from an actor or two.
But you know what? That's really a beautiful metaphor, Michael, because I think everything in our lives is put there for a reason. And you just said it so eloquently, because no matter what it is, a challenge, an opportunity, a chance meeting with somebody in the park, it's all put there for a reason. And you look back and you go, hey, you know what, that's why I met you, and this is why I had an opportunity to do this and XYZ. And I had a similar experience with a gentleman. His name is Frank Symes, and I met him on a tram traveling from one part of the airport to another, and he liked my hat, and I looked at him, and he had a hat on too, and we got into a wonderful conversation, and he had an opportunity, to chat before our flight was getting ready to take off. I was headed to Africa on a long adventure, and he was headed to meet with some musicians. And here I had no idea that he was one of the, really actually a famous musician, did instrumentals and things like that, and worked with The Who. And just like, And we exchanged numbers, we exchanged information, and, the thing that caught me with him was not just his hat, but it was his smile, and it was his infectious, playfulness. And, he was headed to New York and I was headed to Africa, and, we connected via the internet after that, but I still feel like it was just yesterday. So
it's wonderful when that happens. So many great opportunities when we are ourselves, just in love with ourselves, and make sure that we treat ourselves in the best way possible and give ourselves the best experiences possible. You can't help but smile like that. Come on, you can't help but be joyful when you step outside your comfort zone and do something that's not quote unquote dangerous, and the like. Just something that makes you feel alive, that gives you the ability to gives you a sensory experience, I should say, more than anything else, and the ability it exposes you to other people, other cultures, and establishing connections. When you treat yourself to those things, you feel good about you, and you feel good about your life, and you give yourself that contrast that you really need in your life. We all need contrast. It's one of the most amazing elements for changing the way you feel, is to even remember if you're feeling a little bit off or a little bit down one day, you can pull up that memory of Africa and meeting this gentleman, and you can send them an email, and that just shifts your entire mood. Your shifts your energy completely. And in my view, we need to engage in opportunities where we can succeed at things, because that success has its own vibration as well, and it also lets us know that we're alive. It affirms that we made good choices. We feel great about ourselves. We feel hopeful about life, optimistic about the future, and all of that lends to being a very joyful person and a happy person. And I was telling somebody the other day, he says, I work 6 days a week, and it's challenging for me to get out, but I want to meet someone. And I'm going, those two things are incompatible. You can't work 6 days a week and expect to go and meet somebody on your one day off. If you're working too hard, what you're really looking for, and what you're telling me, is that it's not so much a person, but balance in your life you're looking for. You're looking for balance. You're looking for balance between personal life and work life. And I would encourage you to examine why you work so much. Do you fear not having enough money? Do you fear being alone? Fear not having too much time on your hands? What is it that you feel you lack that's making you bust your hump? Or, what story have you bitten into, bought into, I should say, that is making you do this? You're on the millionaire path, and if so, you're missing a lot of life in the meantime. Which I would, I encourage people to don't miss life. Engage with it, and just let yourself wander.
Right.
Sometimes, as somebody said, you have to go to the wrong place to end up in the right place. And that's lovely when it happens.
It is. And I think, we're so trained that it can be this or that, but why can't it be this and that? You can have both. We think that we need to exclude things. And earlier today, I was watching a piece of a documentary, and there's a friend of mine who turned me on to. He's a scientist out of the HeartMath Institute, and he was working with a woman who was teaching children how to tune in to color and the vibration of different things without using their eyes. And it was a magnificent, I think the gentleman's name is Dan Winter, and he has an actual app. I think it's called, if you go to the flamingmind.com, flamingmind.com is what it is. And they have different techniques so you can utilize to tune into the vibration of color. And they showed in the experiment this very young girl in the Netherlands, and they have these very specific blindfolds, and then they have these brain monitors so they can see when they go into different altered brain states. And it was amazing because they had all of these little colored random blocks, and they said, okay, pick all the red ones first. And she did. She picked all the red ones at first, and then she was doing the colors of the rainbow. And it's hard to imagine being able to do that. But she was, and then they begged the question, well, they're training children to do this. Can you train adults to do it? And they gave the same thing. They gave a sheet of paper to an adult. And the woman held it there, and she said, I can't see the color, but I feel like it smells fresh. And I thought, because we utilize different senses, not everybody sees things the same way, right? And here, she said, if I had to imagine a color that would smell fresh, it was green, and that was exactly the color that she was holding in her hand. So and it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. So, we don't always, to me, it was the perfect example of what you're talking about. You're just opening up a whole new realm. You can be wealthy, monetarily or otherwise, without having to work 6 days a week. I mean, there was that book several years ago, The 4-Hour Work Week, which just fascinated me. I haven't been able to do that, but I really applaud the gentleman that could.
I agree with you. I did read the book. It was pretty fascinating. And what's interesting about it is it's a book about balance too. For people though that are creatives, like you and me, I'm a creative. If I'm not playing some music, or I'm sitting down and designing some Angel Life journals right now that I'm publishing on Amazon, and I've got a podcast in my mind that is kind of sitting there, kind of materializing, and I've come to enjoy the time I have alone, because I get to get my creative processes out into, I get to clarify them and then get them out into some sort of solid form, which is a lot of fun. And for me, I've always urged people, urged them to get back in touch with their creative side. And so often it's, I could say, educated out of us. Our creative side is educated out of us, but it exists for a reason, because we all have these talents. We all have gifts to be creative. And in my view, our creativity is there to be a form of alchemy for us. And if I had to pull, I'm sitting here and I've had this wonderful epiphany. I've got 17 elements of alchemy. That's number 18 at this point. Number 18 is creativity, because of its ability to shift your feelings in a heartbeat. When you engage in a creative activity, the rest of the world falls away. And it's you focused on doing something, focused on using your mind to create something. And it's joyful whether it turns out the way you want it to or not, the process, the journey is so cool. It's just so mind-blowing. The focus is there. Time just falls away, and you're engaged in something that is making you feel good as you're doing it. And I told my girlfriend, I said, yeah, okay. She says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to sculpt something, because I've always been very dexterous. So I don't know how. I'll either have to take something and sculpt a piece of stone or marble, or just give me some clay. And then she goes, why don't we go take a pottery making class? And I said, that sounds kind of cool. So we're going to be going and doing that this year at some particular point in the next few months to, put our hands in some clay and make something. And, whether it turns out, it just really doesn't matter how it turns out. It's just the process and the journey that is so much fun. Travel's the same way with us. Golf, to me, is a creative sport. Not to many, but that's because I approach it differently. But I love this particular example he gave me. I'll go look up the Flaming Mind. I'll encourage our listeners to do the same thing because it expands our knowledge base. It's enlightenment, which is the highest vibrational frequency. I want to tell you something quite interesting, and that is that I happen to have had, and a thought just popped out of my head all of a sudden. That happens to me sometimes. Wow, it was there, and all of a sudden it decided, bye-bye.
I probably stole it out of your head because I just wanted to share with you how quickly you manifest things through resonance and I meant to mention it the last time because you had said that you wanted to do a sculpting class, and both you and I had signed up for some classes via Domestica, and one of their newest classes that they just released is figurative sculpting using clay and building it. And the woman, she's in museums all throughout the world. She's teaching this class, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to let Michael know about this. And because it would be such a fun thing to do. She takes you from like the very beginnings of building the armature and building it and how to fire it. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Michael's looking for. So I figured I'd mention that to you.
That is totally true, and it would be kind of fun to involve in that. And it's like I got this idea of taking a 20-pound lump of clay and then making something from it. Just figuring it out. I've always had little ideas in my head. I see things and I go, wow, that is so artistic. Just parts of nature, driftwood. I'm like, man. When I was in California, I used to love walking the beaches because the driftwood that comes up is so absolutely sculpted by the sea. And it's really, really beautiful. And you're looking there going, oh, my gosh, which shelf could I put this on? Because I just want to look at this all the time. But that's
I totally
the beauty
understand.
Yeah.
I have in my bathroom is a piece of wood that I fell in love with. It was just, really rough hewn and whatnot. And I thought, I want to make something out of this. And I had these two pieces of silver, I don't know, they're almost like wolf heads that I had bought at a yard sale years before that I sort of stuck on a shelf. And it wasn't until I found that piece of wood and I thought, oh, I can melt those. And that became my towel rack for my bathroom. And, it's just that bringing that in. I have that same fascination. I take pictures of wood in the forests, and I love to see the way, things go back to the earth. And, I think it's that harmony, it's that influence of reconnecting and knowing that, everything cycles through. And you have a piece. That piece of wood could tell a story. The ones that washed up on the beach. Where did they travel to? That's the way my mind works.
So true. I agree. There was a story about the art glass, sea glass, not art glass, sea glass.
Oh yes.
And how certain beaches and the whole story of how the sea glass came about, which I found was very, very interesting. Yet the sea is a multifaceted thing. It can create beautiful stuff. It can give life. It can take life. It can, it can do all kinds of things, and it can be a place of solitude for many people. The water and the ocean and its movements and the like. I love looking at the various colors of the water that resonate. That being down, I live a mile and a quarter from the beach. When the wind is blowing from the north in the winter, the sea is so calm, but the colors are so gorgeous. And you're just at the top of the Gulf Coast here, and you get the greens and the blue greens and the like, and you can just sit there and just stare at it all day. You just want to look at it going, oh my gosh, it's mesmerizing. It's also very calming. You get those negative ions blowing, but I mean, it's just there are we all we all should be familiar with places that make us that ground us, bring us back to the resonance that we know we should be vibrating at, that we higher resonant frequencies of joy and love and creativity and inspiration those kinds of things. And sometimes it takes, when we get into a funk, so to speak, over something, we have to snap ourselves out of it once we realize that we're in that funk for one reason or another. I like to say that our perception of our situation is generally what, if changed, basically changes everything down the line. And our perception of an event, our perception of a person, we have preconceived ideas of people based on thought viruses that we've been given from other people. I've had people tell me, "Oh, that person is, they're terrible. They're an angry person. They're this, they're that, and or they're rude or whatever." And then I go engage with them, and I don't see any of that. Number one, I didn't go in there believing what they said. I wanted to go in there with an open mind and engage with them with a smile and a positive state of being. And there's nothing that they said was true. So I'm going, okay. Then I go back to him and go, dude, you're off on that one. And it generally turns out to be that that's what they brought to the connection. They brought their own lower vibrational frequencies to the connection, and that's what mirrored back to them. That's what mirrored right back to them. It's a really interesting thing to engage with people. Glenn Brooks is really into relational connection, hugely into relational connection. And actually, that's one of the main things I loved about him, was that he was really into figuring out how people felt about themselves and their life. And I've always said for many decades now that in a relationship, you want to know two things: how people feel about themselves and their surroundings and the relationship itself, all things relationship. And you also want to find out the other thing: how do they know that they're loved? It's a question I like to ask people to ask. Ask your wife of 20 years how she knows she's loved. I said, do you know that thing? Because if you don't know that thing, you could be doing everything else right, and that particular person is right being what you think, how you interpret being loved for yourself, which may be different than your partner. So you ask your partner, how do you know you're loved? And for someone, it may be, for a young lady, it may be, jewelry, when I get jewelry. When I get flowers. Or when I get chocolates. Or when you smile at me and tell me you love me. I know I'm loved then. Or it could be something else quirky. You want to know that thing. You want to know how.
Absolutely.
How that person interprets love. And because everybody does differently based on their life experiences. Someone may not understand love the way you do because they had a different childhood where love wasn't really a big thing in the household. So you've got to know that. And once you know that, believe it or not, you can actually expand upon it and help them see things, help them experience other levels of love, which is a really, really high frequency. One that when we carry it with us, and when we love ourselves and we love life, we love ourselves, love our life, love what we do, boy, I tell you, people gravitate to that. They want to be around you. Yeah, they want to be around you, like a magnet. You're like a magnet for people who, because it's somehow rare, caught up in life, caught up in building wealth, caught up in, keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know, something along those lines. This is the way our society this is the groove our society has turned into. And it's driving down a road that's just, there's less love, more negativity, less positivity, and like begets like. So if I had to say it, it would be that we really need to pay attention. We really need to pay attention to how we are feeling in any given moment. I know it's a job, it's a chore. It's only a chore in the beginning, because when you embrace this whole concept of sovereignty and alchemy and our ability to transform how we feel, and not allowing outside influences to dictate how we feel, and being alert to when that is happening, because it's something that you become aware of and catch, and your mission is to catch it sooner. We are, as souls, given this ability, this power over ourselves and our reality, and I find a lot of people taking it for granted, unfortunately. And then they're asking, on the other hand, why am I not happy? Why do I not feel like I have the freedom to do what I want with my life? Why do I not have the abundance in my life that I'm looking for, or the prosperity and various aspects of prosperity in my life, from relationship to family and all this sort of thing. And it all, in my view, emanates from us ourselves and what we are bringing to the table. And that's where it begins. Again, we got to go back full circle to what I said in the beginning. It all begins with us. It always does. Mm-hmm. It begins and ends with us. Our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you think of the body, the human body like a musical instrument. You're a receiver and you're a sender. And so when you're not at peace, or you're feeling overwhelmed and tired and stressed out, and you walk in the door, and that's what you're putting out, rather than walking in the door with all that stuff that you're going to dump on your partner. Maybe sit in the car for a few minutes and find a beautiful piece of music and tune into that. Find something that's uplifting to every single cell in your body that brings forth changes that. It can be that instantaneous. And I think about again, and I'm always searching new information and looking at different things. I've been a big fan of Tesla for a long time, and I was again in my searching for vibration and oscillation, and I don't recall the exact year, but he was playing with frequency and vibration, and it really made me realize how powerful it is. And he was playing with a piece of equipment, and he was trying to tune in to the frequency and the vibration of the building that they were in. And he would bring it up a notch and bring it up a notch and bring it up a notch, and all of a sudden the building started to shake. And the police were called. All of these people came to this building, and it literally caused a change in the physical structure of the building. Now, he didn't come clean at that point. I think it was maybe 30 years later that he finally came clean about what he was doing with his experiments. But when I was listening to that, I thought, oh my gosh, if you can change a frequency and attune to a vibration of a building, and then change the oscillation such that you can destroy the structure, or really, you've seen it in bridges, you've seen it in lots of different experiments. How important is it to be cognizant of what you're doing to yourself in vibration, and or what you're doing to others? I mean, that to me was like, wow,
so true.
Wow, how do you change what's going on the planet, right? We want to harmonize ourselves, and I think, Pythagoras had always talked about spherical music, the music that connected us to the heavens. And so then that sort of got my mind thinking, and I'm like, I'm sure Michael would know, what is spherical music? What can connect us to that heavenly realm? And maybe it's different for each of us, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm going to ask you that question.
I'd have to look that one up. That is not immediately coming to the top of my mind, spherical music. I know a couple of people who could probably Vince, the player from the from the Katrina and the Waves, could probably shed some light on that. But I'll have to ask him. Spherical music.
They said that it actually had a special influence in the health of people and animals, and then of course then I think of Saint Francis, who had the ability to communicate, and animals would be drawn to him. Again, it had a lot to do with his resonance and what he was putting out. He lived in a place of harmony and peace, and that's what people were drawn to. And
that is amazing. It makes sense, though, completely. And I love what you said just a minute ago about before you meet with your significant other to maybe sit in the car and listen to some music, change your frequency. So many times the temptation is to dump your lower frequency on your significant other, your partner in life, without knowing what frequency they're resonating at or having a care in the world about what that frequency is. And vice versa. Whether you're coming home or, you've got to have a lot of, if you're stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, you've had a different experience. And it's up to you to come together on this, to make it a point to come together on a higher frequency. I guess that's really what I'm attempting to say here. Because that you got to be very careful about the frequency that you're putting out there, that you're sharing with people. I'm extremely cognizant of that. I want to make sure that the frequency, if I'm getting together with someone and I'm processing through and letting something go that occurred, using my little alchemy to get rid of it, that I don't want to meet with people, even my own significant other, until that's done. She's very empathic, so she can really tell when I'm just the slightest bit off, where I haven't fully processed yet, but I've gotten together. And sometimes it's just I'm forced to because we have to leave the house and go somewhere. So I have to, the best way for me to do it is to listen to a piece of music. I've got a playlist and I can run through the songs and I can find something that totally changes my vibe. And I encourage our listeners to tap into their own music that can do that for them as well. It's a very, very wonderful way of being able to change your frequency. And it's one everybody can understand. We grow up with music, and it's even faster than color. Faster. Oh, and know what I was going to tell you now? Oh my gosh, it came to me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We're talking about the Flaming Mind and Heart and Earth Institute. What I wanted to tell you is that I did a weekend with Doreen Virtue back in Seattle, a conference in Seattle, a weekend, kind of an intimate conference of about 30 people. It was a weekend. You know who Doreen Virtue is? I don't know. Doreen Virtue is the angel lady. She's written Hay House author, best-selling author. And the weekend was about communicating with your angels. That's what the weekend was about. And we stayed in the same hotel. We ate together. We communed together for the weekend. And what was wonderful about it is that she had this exercise. And this is where there dovetails with the Flaming Mind, your situation there with colors, is that she said, look, she says, everybody grab a partner, somebody you don't know, sit down facing them, and come close together, hold their hands. You reach out your hands, hold each other's hands, okay? And you're going to tell the other person what their kitchen looks like. This is really interesting. You're going to describe the other person's kitchen based on their vibrations, based on picking up what's going on in their head. They're thinking as one person said, think about your kitchen, the other person described the kitchen as being thought about. And I'm sitting there with this young lady I've never met before, holding her hands, looking her in the eyes. She's thinking about her kitchen, and I start describing a kitchen. And her eyes get wide. I mean, they get, what? Yeah, I described her kitchen, the color of her counter, the color of the cabinets, the backsplash. I mean, it's like she's like, what are you doing? And then she did the same to me, which is interesting because it's something that I would have never guessed I had the ability to do. But the whole point was that we have greater sensory perception than we give ourselves credit for, and that you when you accept that you have it, that's 50% of the game right there. You accept that you actually have this ability, and then you can start applying it. We all have this intuition, this psychic ability that, and this was basically she wanted to bring it home and let us know, hey, you could do this. I thought it was a brilliant exercise, quite frankly.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, remember to this day. It's awesome.
And what's so interesting is it brings it back to, Professor Julius Sumner when he was talking about resonance, that we have, an ability within ourselves, like a big tuning fork, to pick up the variations and the pulses. And you enabled yourself at that point to read the information and to be an open channel for receiving the information as it came through. I think that's beautiful. I think that's really, really amazing. I think that's
a lot of it was simply not denying that you had the ability, not saying how or why you had it. It's a lot of times we get caught up in how and why things occur, or how or why we should do things, and what she encourages us to do is simply say, drop all the barriers and just do it. Don't tell yourself no. Don't put yourself in a position where you're guessing, how does this occur and can I do this? Don't ask that question. Just simply sit down and do it. And a lot of times we let our own disbelief, negativity, not having faith in ourselves, kind of turn us away from something that it would be otherwise an awesome experience.
Without a doubt. I mean, nothing happens unless we open ourselves up and allow things to flow and allow things to come in. Otherwise you just never know. If we live in fear, we've spoken about that so many times, that we have an ability, and you just allow yourself to embark on an unknown journey, and whatever happens, embrace it and be open to that without any fear, and just love yourself enough to try, right?
Yep, exactly. And embrace the unknown. As Glenn used to say, step outside of the known. I believe that was one of his favorite terms. Step outside of the known. Outside of the known. The known, which is, we spend too much time in the known, and we have to, on a daily basis, stretch beyond it. Mm-hmm. That's how we grow and evolve.
Mm-hmm. And he also said your life is precious and to enjoy it. And then I embody that, and I know that you do as well. And, I'm so grateful for everybody that tunes in to Connect to Love here on PRN FM. And I encourage you to listen to Michael J. Russ's podcast on the lifemovespodcast.com, and also to check out his Angel Life journals that are going to be coming out. They're so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful that he's sharing that gift with the world. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And, the more you believe in something you can achieve, you will make it happen through the law of resonance and through so much more. The happiness of your life depends on what you put forth, and we encourage you to do that always. And we're coming to a close, and I'll let you close, Michael, till next week.
I'll simply say two things. First and foremost, do want to remind people that there is a podcast of this episode on Connect to Love, the podcast, on both Apple and Google, and likely other places real soon. It's Connect to Love. Connect to Love. Connect to the resonance of love. That's really all I want to say. There's a special the specialness about that. There's something about it that we all should be grateful for. So connect to love. Connect to the resonance of love every day, yourself and others.